So we're all, the Dharma is the medicine. Yeah. And hopefully we have some opportunity to take that medicine and become well, become whole. Yeah. And another good thing to think about is how wonderful it would be if the Dharma, the authentic Dharma, lasts a very, 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 very long time in this world system, and that we are never separated from it. That is so important, according to, it makes common sense, but also the great beings see that as how important that is. Even now we can see how degenerate the world is, even though the Dharma is flourishing in some places. So much degeneration. So imagine if there were no Dharma, then where would the people with good sanskars, with good imprints, where would they get input from? From great teachers or from the text? They wouldn't. If there was no Dharma, those people would be very forlorn and would also just fall into the pit, as it were, overpowered by the forces of negativity. So we need the Dharma. We need the teachers, authentic ones who have realized it. So in other words, we need the Dharma of scriptural Dharma and the Dharma of realization, people with realizations, not just ability to quote the texts, however useful that is. So we must aspire for that the Dharma lasts a very, very long time. And that the Buddhas continue to manifest as gurus in appropriate way to suit the needs of so many different people, which is extraordinary. The spectrum of different guru activity, the ones who are, well, we have a whole vast range of gurus, don't we? Manifesting different temperaments, different styles, different paramparas, different lineages, and so forth. Some are more wrathful, some are more peaceful, some are more modern, as it were, some are more so-called traditional, some are more flamboyant, some are much more proper, and some are married, some are unmarried, whatever. They manifest in all these ways to help us. So we must pray that they remain. They keep on coming, and they won't unless we create the cause. It won't happen without a cause. Aspiring is one of them. So maybe also listen, reflect, and meditate on the Dharma as much as we can. So we can motivate partly in that way, but also given the tremendous surge of degeneration in the world, the environment, war, famine, disease, given that, and just the overall degeneration of people's minds, which of course is there in the teachings, it's no surprise. None of this is a surprise. But it's getting worse very rapidly because of the nature of this particular century, or whatever you want to say, this particular time. So we need to develop even more compassion, as Rinpoche would say, when problems come, experience them with compassion. Of course, wisdom as well. So we have to experience them not with disgust or taking sides all the time, as people love to do, thus creating more confusion and hullabaloo. We need to respond wisely with compassion. And we can do this because we have the Buddha nature, and we have the keys to unlock the Buddha nature given by our kind teachers, the karuna itself. So, yeah, let us remember for a little while the motivation. Please reflect in the way you find most useful, whether you want to reflect on whatever. The preciousness of this life, the fact we don't have as much time as we may think we have, and that we must make it useful, and useful by developing bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness, so that we can really benefit people and not just create more and more confusion, like so-called peacemakers often make more confusion now. So may we make more wisdom, insight, an actual path towards a better better life for sentient beings. So please reflect for a few minutes, and together with that, spend some time, if you wish, with the basic breath awareness, whatever you need to calm the mind and bring yourself home, as it were, closer to the tranquility within. Yeah, closer to the what we might call the sort of Buddha nature. Just some reminders from the words of Lama Zopa Rinpoche in his book, The Joy of Compassion. This is based on teachings given at the Medicine Buddha retreat in California in 1999. So please listen carefully to Rinpoche's words. You cannot receive even good rebirths or happiness in future lives without depending on the existence of the suffering, obscured sentient beings. Why not? Because even though the Buddha has taught the practice of morality, the cause of happiness in future lives, including upper rebirths, without the base, which is the existence of suffering sentient beings, there's no way to practice it. Okay? He's saying there's no way to practice morality without the base, which is the existence of suffering sentient beings. It's on the basis of sentient beings that we make vows not to kill, steal, engage in sexual misconduct, lie, and so forth. Sentient beings are the foundation of our vows not to give this harm or that harm. Without the existence of sentient beings, we cannot engage in these practices, the cause of happiness. Without the existence of sentient beings, we have no way to achieve any happiness whatsoever, no way to experience the slightest comfort in our daily lives, any enjoyment or sense pleasure up to the highest enlightenment. Every single happiness we ever experience comes to us through the kindness of sentient beings. It depends upon them. Since all happiness comes from virtue, and the virtue we create is the holy action of the Buddha, we also depend on the Buddha for whatever happiness we experience, achieve, or receive. Similarly, all our happiness also depends on the kindness of sentient beings. That's why Shantideva asks, why don't we respect sentient beings in the same way we respect the Buddha? Why don't we treat sentient beings in the same way that we treat the Buddha? Whatever benefit, whatever realizations we derive from the Buddha, we derive the same complete benefit from all sentient beings, from each sentient being. The inconceivable benefits that we get by making just one light offering, one water bowl offering, or one hand prostration to a statue of the Buddha, whichever aspect is taken, we get the same benefits from sentient beings. So this is good too, for us to remember again and again why, at least from Lama Zopa Rinpoche's life, we see not only unbelievable extensive offerings that he made and had made every day in his name for sentient beings, the offerings, countless offerings at his home in Aptos, California, Washington State, and then Papan, and so many centers, extensive light offerings he had done regularly in Mongolia, and so forth. That was always together with total dedication and working for sentient beings, not just making offerings to the Buddha, making offering of service, love, teachings, advice to the sentient beings, the suffering beings. That was Rinpoche's life. Students, older students especially, who have known Rinpoche, who have known him for 30, 40 years or more, they know that. They saw that. And it was something very unusual and extraordinary. His devotion to the Buddhas and his devotion to sentient beings. It was non-stop. non-stop. So we don't need to ask too much how to create causes of not only happiness, but remember, happiness of future life, liberation, enlightenment. The life of Rinpoche showed how to do that. And of course, the lives of lamas existing today. And we can also be like that. We can aspire to be like that. Yeah. In this regard, I would like to also read something that a friend sent today on one of the WhatsApp groups that I belong to. Despite my often criticizing modern technology, there are, of course, great benefits, can be great benefits. So this is something on the practice of Tara. The most important prayer in the Arya Tara is when you are praying, make me like you, make me you. Basically, that's what you are saying. Make me you. Make me you. Make me and you inseparable. Make you me. Make you me. You understand? That's the prayer that you have to have been doing. But since you are this pathetic, whiny, dualistic being who still wants to look up to the 21 Taras on the throne and remain this pathetic, useless sort of this strange person who is smelly, who is not good, then you do the other prayers. Then we pray, please think as a mother to her only child. Another great thing about Aryatara at this time is that Aryatara comes in the form of the feminine. Female is open, receptive, forgiving. Tara always sorts of understands. She has this motherly, sisterly kind of energy. This is what we're trying to take advantage of here. So we say, yes, please look upon me as your only child. You should do that. I actually do this more than the previous one I was just telling you. And not only now, from now until enlightenment, look upon me, guard me, nurse me, guide me, nurture me, protect me, pinch me, not in a kinky way. I know what some of you are thinking. Look upon me like I am as your only child and fulfill my wishes. But also think, may this wish eventually be in accord with the Dharma. Whatever the wish you have, be beautiful, good looking, rich, powerful, fast, slow, thin, fat, doesn't matter. May I become really chubby and voluptuous. But then you add, so that I can maybe get the attention of certain people. And then this person forever will ever be indebted to me so that he or she will become a victim of my bodhicitta. You wish that whatever wish you have will eventually be in accord with the Dharma. And then, of course, wish that relative bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta grow within you effortlessly. So, yeah, protect me, help me, blah, blah, of course. But may I be like you? May I become just like you? There are several prayers like that in the Tibetan tradition. I mean, what's the point of practicing the Dharma, I guess, if we don't want to become like our teachers? We always want to, as you say, become the dualistic, whiny people who think the Guru is great and I'm terrible. What's the point of that? That will only lead to a kind of lopsided sort of Guru devotion and sort of, clingy, dependent attitude on the Guru, totally suffocating the Guru and making other practitioners in the circle jealous and competitive and so forth. So we have to want to be like the Guru and do it quietly without much fanfare. You know? Like in the 8 verses, it says, may I practice the taking on of others' suffering and so forth in secret. Don't make a show of it. People don't need to know. Just like while we're breathing, they don't need to know what we're doing. So like that. So there are many ways, there are countless ways every second to create causes of happiness on all levels. And as Rinpoche also used to say, which is from the tradition, but he would often mention that every second, yeah, every second of this precious human life, we have the choice. We have the choice what causes to create the cause for heaven or hell. We have the chance to create cause for happiness, future life happiness, liberation, enlightenment. It's up to us. As he would also say, it's on the tip of a wish. What we are going to experience is on the tip of our present wish, like an arrow we send into the future. So it's really up to us, and there are so many ways of approaching this, so many techniques, effortful techniques, and then of course the extraordinary higher effortless techniques when we have really achieved some kind of proficiency in meditation and so forth. Then we can be more effortless and less contrived and so forth. And we even speak, don't they, of non-meditation, being the highest way. So yeah, so much. So what are these habitual patterns? We've been talking about habitual patterns, and I think it's on a simple level. We all understand. I don't intend to go into a terribly deep level because partly that would involve unpacking the whole Prasangika Madhyamaka, package, which is not my ability to do that, certainly not right now. But we can see how, karmically speaking, we have built up habits. This becomes very clear when we engage in working in a center, working for others, any kind of activity, especially where we're working with other people, especially people who may, for one reason or another, become close to us. They could be family members, they could be friends, they could be husbands, wives, etc. But we see a lot of our habitual patterns being triggered. We see fear, we see envy, we see jealousy, we see expectation, we see resistance, we see many things. We also, of course, see some good factors occasionally peeping through, like openness. We see some loving kindness. We may even appreciate some joy, depending. But we do see a lot of, do we not, a lot of problematic habitual patterns coming through, like some of the ones I've mentioned. Of course, also tremendous rage and anger can come up, and tremendous lust and grasping can come up again and again in certain circumstances if we do not engage in any kind of skillful dharmic methods to reduce those factors. So these are coming again and again. So we have to be aware of how they are there, and these are just the gross manifestations. We have to see how there could also be a subtle bias, such as the fact that there could be, just to take a modern political example or international example, there could be very, very good, kind-hearted people, say, of white color in the West, who yet still have an underlying bias that, of course, in the end, and this is not articulated, it may just be there, that, of course, we are somewhat superior, or, we can tell Eastern brown people what to do. There is still that. It can be given many labels, Eurocentric, but it is there, because I've also experienced it at some points in my life, since I share both spheres, East and West, increasingly East, but at one time it was more West. So that is there. There are subtle biases. If you're a mother or a father, it's going to give you certain bias. Right now in the world, if you're a Jew or an Arab, there's going to be a certain bias, possibly. However kind of decent and good person you are considered to be, there could be bias. And of course, there's the ultimate bias, not ultimate, but there's the deeper bias of thinking that I'm a man, or thinking that I'm this and this, or I'm certain, level of intelligence. or I am somehow deserving of this or not deserving of this. There are many things which, as we know, through modern also depth psychology and so forth, many factors arising from even just this life, the situation of this life, the birth, the early years, and so forth, how much of a role they can play in our life. Yeah, we know that. So that is creating habits which can be very troublesome as we grow up into adults. So, the neediness, the need to protect ourselves, the need to hide our feelings, or the need to try to overcompensate for feelings of deficiency by being arrogant, proud, loud, so many things. I'm just giving a taste. These are all habitual patterns. And as one teacher said, I think quoted last time, it prevents us. It's like we're looking at the ground all the time, not like a good, monk walking so as not to tread on insects, but we can be looking on the ground, whereas always worried about what's there and upset about what's there, and never taking the trouble to open up our shoulders and look up at the sky, the spaciousness. We're always caught up in petty little details which annoy us and which we then use to annoy ourselves and other people. So there's that sense of habitual pattern, that everything's always got to be this way. And whereas it is good to have a routine, for example, and to eat at specific times, there are people who hate to veer from the routine. And I've several times got it from people close to that they never really feel that hungry. They never have a healthy hunger, but they eat at regular times, eat 3 times a day, never hungry, never hungry. Healthy hunger that someone has when they are fit and have been working and doing something to create hunger. Not hungry, sort of khali. And often then, of course, I eat, the person might say, I'm someone who eats 3 rotis or this much rice. Somehow, sometimes it's very hard to just change the habit. And then one could go on and on, but then there are also relationships where people make other people do this and that because it's a habit. Or you're supposed to eat more. Why are you eating that? One can feel very pressured. It's because of the habit. And the habit is to protect oneself. To feel there are these regular reference points in one's life that keep us going. Habitual patterns also help, I think, very much protect us from an underlying fear and anxiety about death, about whatever, about just being in this impermanent, changing world where we never really know what's happening next. And that's very disturbing. We would really like to control things so that we know exactly what's going to be happening and exactly how much we're going to have in our old age to help us stay alive, etc., etc. All of these things we want all of this. So the habit patterns brought about through insecurity, fear, they are very, very powerful and hard to dislodge. The habit of, if you're a certain class of person, then the habit of having a place to live, meaning your own place, the place you can call your own. Whether it's you own it or you pay rent, whatever, but it's like we need a place, a certain kind of place, a habit of being property oriented, the habit of whatever. It's much of, our life is dominated by habits. So that if some doctor even tells us that this habit you have is not useful, we may not pay any advice, or we'll try desperately to search on Google for some doctor who says the opposite, so that we can say, well, it's not, maybe it's okay what I'm doing. Eating food out of the fridge 2 or 3 days later isn't too bad for diabetes. Maybe. Some people say it is. I just heard it. And that makes sense. Lama Yeshe even spoke about this to us in 1983. I remember him telling us in the Hyatt Hotel in Delhi. I remember it clearly, telling the then director of Tushita Delhi and me just about what he'd experienced in the West. And he said the Westerners, they eat so much cold stuff, he said, out of fridges. It's not good. Not good. So, of course, Tibetans probably have an intuitive understanding. The ones who were born in Tibet, lived in Tibet, intuitive understanding of what is good for us, what's not good for us. But in the West, it's habit. You come home after a long day, you pull out the Coke out of the fridge, cold, no matter what the temperature, slug it down. No wonder that people aren't that fit, that continent, etc., etc. I don't need to speak much more about the patterns, except to say that in the context of the teachings on karma, what am I about to say now? Those of you who are awake will know what I'm saying. In the context of the teachings on karma, what do we say in terms of this one, habitual patterns? Huh? Water. Yeah, you can't get away with such an easy answer. What are the 4 results of a full karmic action? We've been through the song. We must know this as basic Buddhists or higher Buddhists or whoever we think we are, or non-Buddhists even. Good to know this one. Otherwise, I'll have to ask our friend from Australia. Jan will have it on the tip of on her fingertips. Hey, Jan?
No, I'm searching my terrible brain right now to come up with the 4 of them. Yeah, terrible.
Desperately searching through Lamram Chenmo. What are the 4 effects of a karmic action? We did it a few weeks ago. Not speaking to you, Jan. I'm speaking to everyone. Even the gods and other beings who are here in the room. Yeah. So, Yash, what are the 4 effects of a karmic action? Take killing. What's the one effect? That's not the primary effect. That's one effect. But there's the effect which is the throwing karma. The karma throws you into what? Yeah, okay. Of killing, yes. Into a particular rebirth. What's the second effect of a karmic action of killing? Really pernicious one, which I'm discussing now in terms of, again, do I have to say it? Habitual. So what would the second one be? What's the second aspect of karma? Result of a karmic action? Say you love going out and killing squirrels. What's the second karmic effect?
A short life.
No, Jan. We're talking of habitual patterns.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
It's very simple. You have the habit of killing. So simple. Well, but the point is it goes from life to life. That's the horrible thing. Not just that we'll find it easier to kill squirrels later on in our life, possibly, unless somebody really brings it home to us how horrible it is, then of course we can change. But if we regularly kill little animals in this life, then if we're reborn human even, it's not so difficult, as it said, to kill. Maybe not in the next life, but at some future point in a life. Or, of course, the worst effect would be we are born as a carnivorous animal, who relies on killing small animals, even larger animals. So that is so dreadful. Imagine killing or stealing and then having that habit, life after life after life, finding it easy to do that, or relatively easy compared to other people. Can you imagine how terrible that is? Because then that again creates this whole other cycle of karmic cause and effect, right? Again you kill. Again you will experience the 4 results of killing in the future. It goes on and on and on. So, very important to be aware of our habits. And I have to speak this loudly to myself, because just looking at the 1.5 cups of tea that I've already consumed here at Tushita since I came at 9:35, yeah, it's reminding me it's not only creating harm in my body, it's creating pressure on the resident volunteer who feels he has to regularly make tea for me. So, there are karmic effects. The worst karmic effect is one I experienced years ago at the Burmese Vihar in Bodh Gaya when I was helping teach a course to some American students. I hadn't brought my little electric kettle yet and kept it in my room with all my chai, making equipment. And here I was up at 4:30 because the first meditation with those people is 5:30 a.m. And what was I to do? There was no chai. It was difficult, I can tell you. I, of course, went to the meditation and fall asleep, but it was mentally painful, very mentally painful, and the craving that arose in the mind. Now, there's a chai wala outside the Burmese Vihar who starts around 4:30. Bless her. Bless her. 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. she's up because people start early. In Bodh Gaya, which is partly a farming community, people come early, bring their produce into the Bodh Gaya area, take it to Gaya. So chaiwalas start early, in case you need to know. This chaiwala is outside the Burmese Vihar, and so is the one near famous tailors, very close to the main temple in Bodh Gaya. Kind of advice you might not get in the guides. So yeah, it's difficult. You start the day and you, instead of thinking bodhicitta, how can I benefit others today? The fact that I'm still alive, how wonderful. One starts thinking T, then it's for a dharmic. Once someone wants to be a dharmic person, it's problematic. At that very point, you're not a dharmic person. Preta, grasping, searching desperately for something that is not available. That is Pret mentality. And if the teachings are to be taken seriously, it's very dangerous. One is creating the cause to be like that. Pret, hungry ghost. Yeah, so we shouldn't think it doesn't have any effect either. That just craving for half an hour or an hour, what the heck, No. Strong craving for a few seconds has an effect. Of course it does. According to the teachings, and it makes sense. Because again, it's creating a habit, right? Which lasts to this day. I'm living in a modern house. Even if there's no electricity, I can make my tea on the gas. If there's no gas, then yeah, I'll have to wait till 5:30 when the newspaper wallas start putting newspapers together in the market, and there are chai wallas there, bless them, serving the newspaper wallas about 5:30 a.m. So, otherwise, difficult. If I, injured person or handicapped, I wouldn't be able to get to the market to have my tea if there was no gas and no electricity. So habitual patterns keep us in prison, in the prison of pain, really, you could say. Pain, dukkha, constriction of mind. Yes? You see sukha as spaciousness, this we've been looking at. Dukkha as constricted space, crowded space. It makes the mind crowded and cramped, unable to open up. At that point, when you're craving chai, there's no room, is there, for insight, unless one is very skillful. There's no room for bodhicitta. There's no room for thinking about other people. Absolutely none. You're just thinking about me and my lack of chai. So anyway, I've spoken more than I wanted to. Well, that's unfair to say. I actually like talking, but I think better I stop now and we have some discussion because this is a very important topic. And then slowly we can also get on to the other topic, which is deeply linked to it, of course, what we're calling arrogance, which is none other than self-cherishing mind, self-grasping, let's say, self-grasping, holding on strongly to a sense of I, me, mine, which of course is going to then create some kind of process, some kind of dynamic is going to come out of that, right? If there's a strong sense of I, me, mine. So we can also look at that. But let's see. I'll just check what's in the chat and then I'll come to you, Yash. Okay. Yeah, Yash, please. 4 aspects of karma, yeah. That's right. And the third one is the one you mentioned, which is called the experience connected with the result connected with the experience. In other words, you've given suffering to others, you experience it. The second one is called experience result connected with the cause, with the habit, you know. And the first one is the main result, the throwing result. I haven't got that quite right. I have to check again. I'm sorry. I'll check in one of the texts. The technical. They're sometimes given slightly different classifications. It would be there also, not just in Lamrim Chenmo, but in Words of My Perfect Teacher, which is the Nyingma Lamrim, you could say, by Great Paco Rinpoche. That might have a slightly different nomenclature, but it's basically saying that in the second one, you're getting a result according to the action that you've already created. So it becomes a habit. The third one is you are getting a result according to the experience that you have given to others, which is pain, short life, killing them, let's say. If you lie, then of course the result according to the experience is that people lie to you, they're deceptive with you, they cheat you, they are unfaithful to you, etc., etc. All of that can come. So those four effects of karma are very important, and not just to think, oh, bad karma has, negative results. It's really good to think through all the different kind of results there can be. And of course, then going through each of the different non-virtuous actions, each of them have specific results. You know, like there's a terrible result actually from just idle gossip. What it means is one of the results of it is that, you know, you hear in your future lives just useless stuff that is not meaningful. It doesn't help you on your spiritual path, actually distracts you. If all you're talking about is the cricket and the football and blah, da, 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 and who's sleeping with whom and blah, 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 then that's what you're going to hear in future lives. And you'll be addicted to those particular pages of your magazine or newspaper, which is not useful for a Dharma practitioner, right? So that's all it's saying. Even, of course, you'll just blabber again in future lives. That will be the habit. And it will, the main result could be rebirth as an animal without much intelligence. And maybe someone who barks a lot, makes strange noises a lot. This becomes this useless speech. Environmental effect would be something not very nice, not of course as harmful as the one with killing, but the environmental effect of idle chatter, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it's put in the text, but it could be at least an environment where there is uncertainty in terms of weather and crops because of, you know, could be. You can check that. It's in the text. So for this, you need to look at Lamrim Chenmo, the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Lamrim Papa. There may be something in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation by Gampopa. And there's the Words of My Perfect Teacher by Papa Rinpoche. These are very great texts in the different traditions. Can't remember the Sakya one. There is a particular one there. But there's bound to, they also have all of these teachings. So please, anything else from people? Very happy. It's only 12 o'clock. We can go another half hour, 45 minutes. Lenin, Arya, Divya, Jan, would you like to share something? Initiate any discussion of what to
I'm wondering if you could comment on how difficult it is to, you know, be so guarded and have karma in your mind in a day-to-day basis. You know, one can read and try and practice like this, but it obviously is habitual behavior that causes us to continually create.
I don't know. Ajivji, is your course being live streamed? The one at Deer Park?
Mm.
Ajivji is here. He's co-leading a course at Deer Park next month, I think, on chapter 5. Chapter 5
Mhm.
of Shantideva, which is, I think, very much connected with your question. So chapter 5 of Shantideva, you can read. But essentially,
Okay.
that we just have to be really moment by moment aware, which is something we only get through practicing. And also the teachers would say through, their old favorite, purification and accumulation. Purification of the mind and accumulation of positive energy. That helps everything, doesn't it? Why are we so distracted? Why are we so, caught up with hopes and fears and, our attachments and so forth? Because we haven't purified our minds. We haven't accumulated enough, positive energy through love, compassion, mandala offerings, water bowls, all the rest of that which is given in the tradition. We haven't done that, so or at least we haven't done it enough, and so we can't go a minute without the mind, veering off. So I think, when they say even in the 8 verses that the essential thing, isn't it? That third verse, I think, in all circumstances I'll watch my mind, and as soon as a negative emotion arises that endangers myself and others, I shall confront and avert it. So that just means, doesn't it, Jan, continual. We've just got to be
Mm.
awake. It's really very bad news. We can't relax totally. We've got to be watching what we do. I don't think it's impossible. If we're looking down on the ground, as we do often in India, to not step on insects, then yeah, your mind could be elsewhere too, but it's kind of a good start. Watch where you're going, because also in some roads you can fall into a hole, so it's better to be looking down, than up in the sky and pretending one's a Dzogchen practitioner or something. It's good to be focused on the ground, right? So if we're focused on the ground, then that creates maybe a base to also be very carefully aware of what's going on in our head. What do you think? What methods have you employed, Jan? Because you're an old-time practitioner and you know how to do this. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, most of it comes down for me. It's like the end of the day, which probably a bit late, but the purification practice and the remembering, which sometimes I just don't. And, it's obviously a habit. So then I have to remind myself when I sit down at night that, look at the day, how well or not so good it is, and try again the next day to do better, particularly when there's a lot of heavy situations going on. And
Right.
I mean, without the Dharma in my life, I really wonder how I would manage. And I don't manage very well, and from a Dharmic point of view, perhaps, but without the teachings, without the input from our lamas and people like yourself to keep reminding us to practice and read the text, I think it would be a very difficult life, more so than what I think it is now.
I agree. Absolutely. As one teacher once said, I think at Losar, very short message. I think it was checking in with the I'm not sure. I think so. He said, we Dharma practitioners, people who, consider ourselves Dharma practitioners, we should be so grateful that we just have these teachings on impermanence, let alone the others. Just impermanence, it's so useful. So yeah, it's like we have all these little methods, all these great teachings, which can help us so much. And impermanence in the sense that if we could remember our death regularly, powerfully, then it is said to stop a lot of nonsense, distracted mind.
Definitely.
So, and as those of us who are senior citizens approach rapidly the end of our lives, I guess we should really be focused a lot on that. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
What's going to be our state of mind as we die? One practitioner asked me that some years ago, and I had no good answer. I mean, it was a great question. What's your mind going to be like, Kabir, when you're dying? And I shuddered. if I die right now, at that point, and even it's going to be a mess. Even the bardo will have a confusing time with me in it. It will be wow. Who knows what will happen? So no control to go to a good rebirth. Yeah, it's kind of sobering, isn't it? I'm gonna have a cup of tea.
Sir, I had a question related to this.
So,
For example, like the mind would be operating in certain habit patterns.
yes,
So, like you mentioned, then at the time of the death, one of these patterns could take over, and you could have a bad rebirth or something of that sort. So,
exactly.
sir, so that means we have to start very early
Yes,
and trying to prepare the mind.
exactly, sir. Yes, exactly.
But then, sir, I mean, what I've noticed is that the patterns they operate in such a subtle and a fast manner that, I mean, I personally realize it too late.
I wouldn't say too late. You've realized it, so you're not on your deathbed, so you can do something.
No, I mean that in our daily activities, as Jan mentioned, that there are so many distractions. The mind just veers off, and
Yeah.
it happens so subtle and so fast. I mean, I personally realize it very very late. By the time already a lot of time has been wasted. So I was just relating it to what you just said at the time of a death. I mean, it's going to be a very strange.
I wouldn't think like that. I would think that I can do a lot, and given these skillful teachings, if I make a start now, for sure I can do a lot. And it's not just watching the mind; it's also creating, um, causes and reflecting on love, compassion, impermanence. All these things will help us at the time of death. It's not like it's just the mindfulness of this or that. It's you know meditating on love, meditating on compassion, but of course, yes, remembering to do it when we are close to death. Yeah, that is of course tricky because the mind might have a lot of fear, anxiety, or anger at someone, lust, or whatever. So much could arise at the time of death. Regret, that's a big one. A lot of people might have regret. Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have told that person I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't have allowed that person to have so much of my money. So many regrets could arise. So we have to replace those kind of thinking patterns with the Dharma, which gives us many, many clues, direct information on how to think, you know, how to think. While we're alive, there's something called the five powers, which we might look at, and also the five powers while you're alive and the five powers while you're dying, which are connected with the bodhicitta practice. But basically, it's creating the pauses to remember the great compassion again and again, and to purify the mind, and to watch the mind, and to remember the determination to work for the benefit of others, and so forth. All of these things. The more we practice, don't you think, then the more likely it is that those things will be uppermost in our mind when we die. And there is nothing that doesn't get easier through practice, says Shantideva. So it's very encouraging. And remember, our mind is much, much, much more flexible than our body. Our bodies, however much yoga we've done, can tend to become, a bit rigid and so forth. If you're young, very good. If you're not, then you'll know what I mean. It can become kind of not as flexible as it was, but the mind can be extraordinarily flexible. Of course, as you say, better to start young, but it can change even older, when one's older, definitely, depending on the effort we make. So the mind is extraordinary. Lama Yeshe, our teacher, used to say that, what did he say? He said, there's, what was it? I'll remember it by next session. There's nothing basically that the mind cannot achieve. The mind is vast. It is can virtually do anything. So, and of course, it can transform into Buddha, which is an extraordinary thing. So, we shouldn't give up, Mr. Arya, and say that it can't be done, or we're going to have a bad rebirth. We shouldn't think like that. No way. not so useful. Remember, you and everybody has the Buddha nature, which means we have the basic foundation for waking up completely. And so therefore, we just need to strive. Really. If you have time, please read Shantideva, chapters 4 and 5, especially. And then on to chapter 6, which is about patience. 7 is joyous effort. 8 is on meditation, so forth. It's very useful. Have you come across that text, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Shantideva?
Sir, I've just read 1 or 2 pages from the introduction.
Yeah, it's a very, very important text in our tradition by a very great being, great Bodhisattva. And the text is an extraordinary one, which has inspired the practice of many people, including the present Dalai Lama. So something very much to be looked at and cherished. Great text. Yeah. Yeah, the other way, I guess, is to create happiness is more from the Vajrayana tradition, but it works very well. I mean, you can read about it. You might even get WhatsApp messages connected with it. And that is to try and see purity rather than ugliness all the time. You know, to transform our perception, to see the good in ourselves, to see the good in others. See meaning you might not see it on the surface, but to realize that there is beauty and depth and great love and compassion in everybody. Because everybody is just, hibernating Buddha, or at present an unawakened Buddha. But everyone has basic goodness, Buddha nature. Everybody is capable of tremendous wisdom and kindness. So to begin to look at the world that way rather than always in the other way. Because depending on circumstances and who you are, sometimes we very much look on only the negative side. Of course, this doesn't mean we ignore suffering. That's not what we're saying. But in terms of our connection with other people, we often, don't we? I do. Often instantly make a judgment and criticize or say, this is not that good, or that isn't that good, or they shouldn't have said that. But we could begin to see others in a more, sort of pure perception, we call it. Pure perception. More pure. But without being stupid about it, getting duped by people, cheated. But to see the purity also in others, the beauty. And you can get very quick results with this, by the way, sometimes, by just being nice to people and saying something nice to them. Even someone you don't know. Of course, depends on the circumstance. You don't just go up to a stranger in the metro and start talking. They might get very embarrassed. But there are situations where you can say something to someone. For example, someone you see regularly, and at least they recognize you because they're in the colony, or they're a guard sitting at a gate. So, by saying something, talking to people in a nice way, you can elicit a different sort of response from people, a different look even on their face. They can become happier. Whereas they could be looking rather grim or staring at you in a not very nice way or whatever. But if we're nice to people who are just having a different attitude, then it can be very useful. Have people had that experience? You must have had that experience.
Yes, just today I saw a customer give one of the older shop ladies a box of chocolates just because she felt you know, it would be a nice thing for her to have. No, it was a very delightful thing.
Yes.
And the shop lady is an older lady who works every day there very hard. And this person thought it would be nice to give her a present.
Mm.
And, you know, it was a lovely interaction.
She must have been very happy.
She looked very happy and thanked the person so much, said thank you. So she really appreciated it.
Yep. Kind of reminds me of Mother Teresa. We don't have to always do great things. Small things with great love. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's many skillful things we can do. Yash. Yeah. Really? Really?
I also tried to do it morning and she helped me with it.
Koshalya hugged you. Wow.
That's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
The same namaste.
That's great.
To change the day.
Yash, who works here at Tushita as our resident volunteer, is explaining how he touched the feet of the cook and the cleaning lady. She's older, so touched her feet out of respect, and how profound an effect it had on her. And she gave him a hug, which is very unusual. That is very unusual. Yep. And one of the praises, of course, of the Buddha or Bodhisattvas, I think in Shantideva involves, how amazing, I bow down, he says, before the feet of those who return good, kindness, even, to those who have given them harm. I bow down to people, to the Buddha who gives happiness to those who cause him harm. Things like that. But that can also affect people's minds and make them stop. When the usual response would be not so nice, but the person you have harmed responds to you with kindness, then wow, certainly would have an effect somewhere down the line, if not immediately. There's a book I'll probably speak more about later. It has some excellent chapters. How to apply discipline even when your head gets cut off. Riding the waves of your life, bringing light to a dark world. This is a commentary on called A Guide to Life for the New Generation. So it won't do for us, Jan. We're old generation. Maybe the new generation. The under 50s or under 45s might bringing a spacious mind to subtle acts, joining heart and mind in a genuine way. This is a student of Wangsa Rinpoche and that tradition. Not Trungpa Rinpoche. Yeah. Laugh at the display of your mind. Now that is useful. Often we take our mind so seriously, including our habitual patterns. When we start to unravel them, we might get very distressed. But if we're always very, very uptight about it, it's maybe going to create more tension and more guilt and more, But sometimes we can look and laugh at our mind, can't we? If we're doing meditation, it's not really hard. If we're sitting and watching the mind playing its games, it can be funny. If you have that way of looking at life sometimes. Helps if you're partly British. If you're totally not British, it won't be so easy because we're British. Relating to my British side now. we have a lot of comedians. Increasingly in India, I think in Australia you have too, and you can always look at the funny side of life, and that can be helpful. Not all the time, but occasionally, very helpful. So we can laugh at our ridiculous mind, going round and round in circles and actually contradicting itself every few minutes. You know, you can see it in your own conversation. Sometimes people, if you're having a serious time with your partner or whatever, you can see all sorts of things arise in conversations, one's own little contradictions, others, what they're saying. And some things we can take with a pinch of salt. We can smile at them. We may not laugh. We can smile. Okay. Basically, if we're not 200 meters down in the ocean, right? And if we're on the surface, it becomes like brilliant metaphor. There's going to be ripples on the surface, right? There's going to be some ripples, even waves, and wind. So what do we expect if that's where we are? So unless we go deep into our minds, we're not going to find the calm, clear, or up spaciousness. So we can laugh, we can smile at the crowded quality of it. Like someone who's been in India a long time or grown up in India, you can smile when you go into Old Delhi railway station. If you don't have too much luggage, that is, and the porter is racing ahead and you can't see him anymore, then of course you get a bit worried. Conspiracy theories begin to go around in the head. But, you know, all things being equal, you can smile. And actually, it's fascinating to watch crowds. Have you ever watched crowds in a railway station? It's unbelievable what's going on. All sorts of different little groups. Some are lying down, of course, in Indian stations. You won't find that in Australia. Some are sitting, some are crouching, some are standing, looking at the board, the train times. So much going on. You know, it's fascinating. So one can smile and also be sad. Sad for the reasons we know. They're all gonna, get old and die or get sick, etc. And some of them are having a hard time traveling, and some of them very poor. The poor ones you especially see in stations like Gaya, where they're often sleeping there at night because it's the only place to sleep. Not that they have a train to catch. It's the only warm place, safe place they can be. And of course, some are just waiting to try and get onto a train, unreserved compartment. It's so crowded. I can't breathe. I haven't been on one for a long time in the unreserved, but I wouldn't want to do it for more than a few minutes. So all these beings are there. So apart from the fascination and, the stories one could tell back home if one's a foreigner, there's tremendous sadness, there's tremendous suffering happening at these stations. Of course, a lot of exhaustion also. You see people just lying exhausted. And you see, last time I was on Gaya station a few days ago, one would say crazy, just going up and down, talking to himself loudly. Luckily not at all violent. Just walking up and down. Nobody paid any notice. On platform 1, where the Rajdhani was about to arrive. So you see all sorts of things, and one can smile, and some people can cry. You see all our mother sentient beings in these different scenarios. Get on the train. That's a whole other experience. Yep. So Sagar. Yeah, just go. And like Mingyur Rinpoche's description a little bit also when he was at Varanasi station after he ran away from his monastery for his 2-year, was it 2 year or 4 year? It was more than 4 years. He just left his monastery and wandered around incognito, sometimes in the Himalayas, sometimes in the Indo-Gangetic plain. So he has this amazing description of how as a High Lama he leaves his monastery and First goes to Gaya railway station and then Varanasi station. Amazing this experience he had there. This is in his book, In Love with the World. Marvelous book. Marvelous book. In Love with the World. Yeah, so crowded mind, crowded railway stations. We can smile at what's happening in our mind. Why not? Or we cry. Yeah. Which one? The one in the mind?
Yeah, I mean, even if when you go back, when you train physical in that, you know,
The worst is when you have a lot of luggage and at the last moment they say there's a platform change. So at Gaya you have to go up. And, then they cancel. Yeah. 4 hours late. Yeah. Sagar ke liye. We have a aspiring filmmaker in our Sangha. Ajirji is referring to called Sagar, which means ocean, Yatso. So he is. We want a role in his movie. Yash can have a role. But you must see this. Come and show them your. Come. This is our resident volunteer Yash saying namaste to our friends. And you see his shirt. It's amazing. No? Yeah. So very nice. Sorry?
I always say,
He wants to spread happiness to everyone. What a strange guy. ठीक है, he must be reading Shanti Deva. So yeah, we need to actually seriously. What Ajiji has said is good because we need little films, little, short ones, like which the ones that go viral, to promote goodness, to promote sadness and smiling and all of this at our situation. Have deeper insight and empathy for each other. We need all this. And the filmmakers can do a lot. Media people do so much. Rather than the crash that seems to be there now. Yeah. 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 Oh, that's a good question. What is the karmic cause of anxiety? I think Rinpoche kind of looks at this. If anxiety is a very disturbing state of mind, in general, one would say it's the cause of creating disturbance for other people through harming them. So we have created anxiety for others through our actions, our speech, through our thoughts towards them, or our habitual thoughts, of course. If we're anxious in past lives, we'll likely continue that, even though we might have quite good circumstances in this life. Still, there's a habit of anxiety when we don't need it. So those could be some of the causes. But it has to be something where we've created a disturbance and anxiety for others. Like when someone harms you with a knife or something, it's the karmic causes harming others, killing others, doing the same to others in the past. So depression, especially early morning depression. I remember Rinpoche saying, early morning, if you have that kind of depression, it's a result of sexual misconduct. Why he said that, I'm not sure. It could have, it does make some sense, I think. But it's certainly not anything good, is it? It has to be early morning depression rather than midday or evening, let's say. That's what Rinpoche said. And given that I know he was a clairvoyant great Lama, I believe what he said. I'm not saying that's the only reason for depression. There are many reasons, I'm sure. That's the one Rinpoche decided to mention in one particular book, I think it was a lecture that was recorded. So, if we have a lot of anxiety, fear. if we have fear that someone's actually waiting to harm us, if we have fear of someone we live with, or we're afraid of our boss, what's the cause of that? What do you think? According to what we have just been talking, what would be the cause of others making us afraid? Or just making others afraid, scaring them, threatening them, being nasty to them. Say there's a younger person and you're really nasty to them. You don't harm them even physically, but you make them afraid and uncomfortable. So you've created fear in the other person. So that would create the karmic cause for us to have fear. And not necessarily in relation to a particular person. You could just feel, someone just feels very uncomfortable and afraid of we know not what. But obviously we have harmed others in that way, instilling fear in their minds, greater or lesser. Of course, as we know, karma is considered very foundational Buddhist teaching, together with beginningless mind. It's the first thing that was there in the early book that Rinpoche brought out, Golden Wish Fulfilling Sun, it was called. The early book they had at Kapan, in the monastery in Nepal. It must have been there in the 70s. I wasn't there till 1980. Already the 13th meditation course. They had this book, and the first teaching was beginningless. That was Rinpoche's way of starting that book, which was then superseded by it. That was very important for Rinpoche to mention. Beginningless mind, endless, calm. This really expands our understanding, or at least expands our mind. We may not understand it yet, but it expands our it makes us stretch what we normally think to be the case. One life, what I do, it may have an effect, but it's only one life. That is very destructive for a proper Buddhist practitioner, according to tradition. It makes sense. But of course, it's sad because many so-called modern Buddhists contest that strongly in the name of, doubt and being, maybe trendy even. It's good to doubt Buddha. Of course, initially maybe, but keep on. It's considered deluded doubt, and then it can be very, very dangerous. Ignorance of karma, ignorance of the deeper ignorance of inherent, or believing in inherent existence. I think these are often the two categories of ignorance that are given. Ignorance of karma alone is so dangerous. Of what? Wars. Wars, yes. Spell. Wars, yeah, yud. Wars, battle, wars. Yeah. Sure, fear brought on by capitalism, by wars, but then the karma of that is, why are you born as a poor laborer who has to fear the capitalist? Why aren't you born as the capitalist who is instilling fear? And why are we collectively born here at this time when there are so many wars? That's collective karma from the past, which has been harming others, basically. That's why morality depends on others. We harmed others, now we get harm in all sorts of ways. We're not involved in a war directly, but we fear, we have anxiety. Because also in India we've had wars. Ajirji is old enough to remember the 62 war, the 65 war, I remember the 65 war, the jets flying over Delhi, being very scared as a child. And seeing the newsreel, death and destruction. In 65, Pakistan war. Yeah, it's we've created the karma to be upset, to be scared. Luckily, not yet to be bombed, so it doesn't happen in Delhi. So Delhi has other issues, environmental effects. Think of it. If it's taking 10 years of people's lives, as they say, or more, that's also a karmic result of something not very wholesome. You have to breathe this kind of air. But of course, the great thing about Mahayana is we can transform everything. You breathe the air, you feel you're breathing in the suffering of others. And you're creating, okay, your life may be less, but you're creating the course of Buddha. By imagining you're breathing in the suffering of others and giving them your virtues, your body, your merits, all these things, giving them happiness. So everything's transformable according to Mahayana and Vajrayana, which is why we're very fortunate to have these teachings. Otherwise, you just become miserable and blame and get angry at the authorities for not doing this or not doing that. But it can still transform the situation. A great bodhisattva would want more and more pollution in their house. 500, 600 AQI. They can transform it. I mean, within limits. They don't want to die. Or they might have one of these in the corner. I've heard these air purifiers are quite good. My auntie used one and it cleared it up very quickly in her room, according to the machine. It went down drastically, almost to zero. I don't know if that's an inbuilt trick or whether it's really good. So anyway, we're talking about why we meditate. Sokni Rinpoche, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit how we have a different pattern. And he used the word monster.
Beautiful
And
monster. Yeah.
Yeah. And I talk about in a time also, right? He said that our habitual pattern is nothing but the accumulated subconscious mind.
Habitual pattern is nothing but subconscious, accumulated subconscious energy, according to Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah. So it really flows and it's all part all our present time.
It really flows
And it
overpowers, yeah.
our present moment.
Our present moment,
And
yes.
we are never in the
And we're never in the present.
comes like going forward.
Yeah.
So basically saying that we are never in the present. So we are never alive in the real time.
Yeah.
Because we don't see the present.
We
are
don't
not
see
in the present.
Yeah.
So I think to me it feels just yes. I think we're really saying it's a technical which is really driving my life.
Mm.
I don't know as if I'm just moving like a robot or biology. So that's the one view of this.
Yes, yes.
But on the other hand, I think if I shift that, okay, I want to get up early in the morning.
Yeah.
I want to sit for 5 minutes for the meditation.
Yeah.
I'm also putting my mind in the pattern.
Right.
That is also habitual. So
Yes.
that is in the nature of liberating
Yeah.
habit.
Right.
So I would always welcome that.
Right.
So I think when we're really talking of the habitual pattern, I really would like to see in terms of these two different aspects. One, I want to be conscious and get rid of that, or eliminate or dissolve. And another one, I really want to cultivate so that that pattern is more in the nature of liberation, creating more space, more embarrassing in the nature. Yeah.
Yeah, because we know what the Tibetan word gom means.
Yeah.
To habituate to what is wholesome. So there is good habituation as well. Yeah. you want to come closer in case you want to say something in the circle? I've descended to the level of everybody now. My karma changed. I'm on the floor.
How even in your tradition they say the concept of memory.
Memory.
Everything is a memory. Manas Tishkute Manas. So I think whether it's a DNA has a memory or body cells have a memory. So I think that is where the habitual patterns are coming.
Well, it's stored there. Buddhism would say it's mind, it's mental.
Mind and the man imprint.
But it's also imprinted there. Krishnamurti speaks like that. Change the very brain cells.
Exactly.
Maybe they vibrated at a different level.
I always like an image for a river function. Like in the mountains, if the river is flowing, you find that the people are carrying a log of wood in that. Sometimes the small boat type to carry the things. So they are like the imprints of the mind.
Right.
Yeah. And we are not really conscious when these imprints are being imprinted on the mental stream. If you are conscious at that time, then I think we would not carry that because we know that it's a bird. Yeah.
So it's like the CD. It's like the CD which has many songs recorded in it.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of replay. Yeah, it's a bit like constantly something, especially with anxiety, really wanting something, replaying.
The nature of
Speak loudly.
the nature of the mind is to form habitual patterns, is it? And so, what you are saying has two aspects: that the subconscious part, and to cultivate more maybe good habitual patterns. So the nature of the mind is that it forms habitual patterns.
Which nature of the mind? The deep nature of the mind or the ordinary?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Buddhist psychology is very clear. The nature of the mind is clear and knowing. That is our nature. Okay? But we have conditioned the mind to put in that glow, which is not really the nature of the mind. It is the conditioned mind or the conditioned mind.
Ordinary mind.
Otherwise, I mean, let's say, just giving an example. When I went to the school, I didn't know what is ABC. I didn't know 1 plus 1 is 2. But I went there and learned it. Why? Because the nature of the mind is to know it. But we make it so limited that, and very clearly, some of the examples are really given. Suppose in the dark, if you are lighting up the torch, how much space you can really see? You can see in the darkness, but it's very limited. But suppose if you put on light like this, you see bigger. Suppose if it's a sun, so our mind capacity is like the sun. We can really see everything very clearly. Yeah. So
But
that's a
we
nature.
merely- But we merely switch on just a bulb.
Exactly. तो कल से आप जहाँ भी चलेंगे रोशनी रोशनी हो sun
That would be nice. I think Chittamatra, other schools are very sophisticated with ways of talking about it. There's of course clear light consciousness, that doesn't have any habitual pattern. But all the other layers seem to attract habitual patterns or store them. So we are prone to them. And of course we are using our senses every day. That creates a habit, doesn't it? Habit of seeing, habit of listening. It's like something habitual happening all the time. It's not like each day we wake up with different senses. You know what I mean? So there's the habit that we're used to. Whereas if we were a clairvoyant person or a different realm person, we wouldn't have the same kind of senses. They would operate slightly differently. We're habituated to the human karmic vision right now. It's one way one might look. We have no choice right now but to see things with a human habituation. That's what it is to be doing. And it's not bad, it's just the way it is.
it's a very fancy, I think, to talk the present moment. It's a wonderful moment. It's a beautiful moment. I find this is the most challenging thing to bring the mind to the present moment. I think it's a really, really very. It's not that easy. Just the breathing. I mean, Yash was talking the yoga very clearly recorded. We take in one day, you know how many breaths? 21,600 breaths. How many breaths are we really aware of? We may talk, okay, be with the breath, be with the breath, be with the breath. Once we were doing the meditation with the breath, I said that let us just do 11 breaths. And when you open up, somebody said 2 breaths, your mind has gone. And the average breath you should know is 15 per minute. Okay. So if it is 15 per minute, if somebody is really moving, his mind wanders after 2 breaths, you can imagine what is the attention span.
Yeah. So,
William James, who is the father of American psychology, he has recorded 4 breaths. Just 4 breaths. So I think we talk present moment, and if we really go the ancient scripture, moment. What is the duration of stone? Movement. This comes क्षण बोलते हैं, एक क्षण. वैसे the some say that finger. Some are saying 1 क्षण is equivalent to the winking of the eye. Some are saying that it's sounding 1 vowel. जैसे बोलते हैं आम. Do you really agree? I may talk, पढ़ें ये है, but to get to this present moment. I read Osho, he said that if you are totally aware of being in the present moment for 3 minutes, he said that you will really know what is the awakeness. He's just giving 3 minutes. Very interesting. Very interesting. आप घर में जाके 11 सांस लेना, कितने सांस के बाद इधर उधर चला जाना.
it's embarrassing, yeah.
Yeah, it's real. नहीं, यहाँ तो और बैठेगा, लेकिन घर में.
Talking about how difficult it is to keep the mind on the breath, you know, let alone 11 breaths. You know, right?
Oh,
Have to learn Hindi, Jan. It's high time. All these years coming to India.
I know. It's really been one of my saddest things that I didn't learn Hindi.
Anyway, next slide.
Never mind. You were my interpreter, so
And I'm looking at this as past and future. The past is all about memory, future it's all about imagination. Then what is the present all about? What is the definition of being the present, the word present itself? Does it exist?
Sangika say there's no present. It's already gone when you think you're there. And I was reminded when Ajirji was speaking of the so-called bubble chamber experiment, where this scientist said quite a few years ago now that from his point of view, what he was observing was going in, as he put it, in and out of existence, some hundreds of thousands of times per second. What he was observing was going in and out of existence hundreds of thousands of times per second. Yeah. So what does that mean? You know, it's like where are you going to stop? How deep are you going to go? Things are just a vibration. There is nothing to hold on to, including the present moment, it seems.
There was an article in the US. The scientists built the silent chamber. What could be that? And then they brought one ant. This ant was made to crawl. You know the sound which was as if the full train is running.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Itna depth of the silence. Just see.
Wow. So there was nobody in the chamber.
No,
It
no,
was
no,
just
nobody.
the ant.
Yeah, just the ant. They send it and then recorded the sound. They said just like moving the train.
Wasn't a loud ant or something.
Yeah.
Actor. Wow. Yeah. Very good. So I think actually I need more sessions like this. It doesn't have to be a full game. Time.
No, Pawn is not for Kabir. It is for the Dharma, which is flowing from there.
Okay, so folks, I think we're ending here, at least for you folks. We might carry on chatting a while. Thank you very much for joining. We should
Thank you.
for all of the causes we mentioned at the beginning, plus for the swift return of Lama Rinpoche, an unmistaken, clear incarnation to guide us again. And yeah, for us never to be separated from the Dharma and the great teachers, and for those alive now to have long and healthy lives, especially His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and all their holy wishes to be fulfilled, and for Tushita to be more and more beneficial for others, and for the younger generation of students to take on more and more good work at the centers. For all the projects in India to be very successful, and so forth. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day wherever you are. Thanks, Jan. Thank you, Len and Arya. Thank you very much.